In the dead of night, the world was cloaked in a thick velvet darkness that swallowed the moon and stars, whole. Echo moved through the shadows like a wraith, her every step silent and calculated. The abandoned military base sprawled out beneath her feet, a relic of forgotten wars and whispered secrets. Its walls were scarred with rust and decay, yet somewhere deep inside a spark of danger still flickered. Echo was not just any operative, she was a Navy SEAL, one of the most elite warriors the military had ever produced. But her reputation went beyond her lethal skills. It was her silence that had earned her the name Echo. A ghost in the night who never spoke, yet commanded respect and fear in equal measure. Tonight, her mission was razor, sharp and unforgiving. Infiltrate the base, retrieve classified information, and extract with K-8 the combat robot designed to be her silent partner. The wind brushed past her face, carrying with it the scent of damp metal and forgotten memories. Her boots kissed the ground softly as she skirted the perimeter of the compound, moving like liquid through the darkness. Her body was a weapon finely tuned and ready for whatever lay ahead, every muscle coiled with tension, every nerve alert. She was alone except for K-8, who trailed just a few paces behind like a shadow bound by technology, and programming. K-8 was unlike anything Echo had ever encountered. A towering figure of steel and circuits with a mind programmed to anticipate threats and respond with lethal precision. It moved with uncanny grace, its sensors scanning the environment endlessly. The robot was her eyes and ears in places Echo could not see. Its presence was both reassuring and unnerving, but in the dangerous game she played, trust was a luxury she had long since abandoned. As they approached the control room, Echo slowed her pace. Her instincts screamed a warning. Something was off. The air hung heavy and still, as if the world itself was holding its breath. She crouched, low behind a rusted vehicle, her breath steady despite the rapid beat of her heart. Her fingers brushed against the cold metal of her communication device, but she said nothing. Instead, she whispered a command to K-8, a string of code only the robot could understand. K-8 halted instantly, its mechanical joints locking into place. Its sensors flickered rapidly, analyzing an unseen threat. Echo watched the robot intently. Her mind raced to piece together what could be causing this sudden hesitation. The base had been declared abandoned, but the robot's instincts told a different story. A signal interference, a hidden trap, or worse, an enemy waiting in the shadows. The seconds stretched endlessly. Echo's eyes darted around the dimly lit compound, trying to catch a glimpse of the danger lurking just beyond her vision. Suddenly, a faint pulse of light shimmered in the corner of her eye. A small device attached to the side of a nearby building emitted a soft, rhythmic glow, the source of the signal that disrupted K-8's programming. Echo's hand moved swiftly, pulling a compact tool from her belt. She crept toward the device, careful not to trigger any alarms. Her mind was a whirlwind of calculations and possibilities. Every step was a gamble, every breath a countdown. Her fingers worked quickly, slicing wires and disabling circuits until the glow faded into darkness. But the moment the device powered down, a chilling sound broke the silence. A voice cold and deliberate echoed through, the bass loud enough to freeze Echo in her tracks. The voice was calm but carried a deadly edge as it spoke in a language of power and control. "You should not have come here." Echo whispered a command again to K-8, but this time the robot did not respond. It remained frozen, as if caught in a moment of hesitation or betrayal. The voice continued, revealing details only someone inside the operation could know, secrets about Echo's past missions and her every move tonight. The realization dawned on her. She was not just being watched, she was being hunted. A trap had been set, and she was the bait. The darkness around her seemed to close in tighter as footsteps echoed from the shadows, approaching fast and unseen. Echo tightened her grip on her weapon and prepared for the inevitable. The night was no longer just a cloak for her mission. It had become a battleground where every whisper could mean death and every shadow a hidden enemy. Her silent partnership with K8 was about to be tested, like never before. And as the first flash of danger exploded into the darkness, she knew there was no turning back. The alarms that suddenly shattered the eerie silence were like thunder crashing through the abandoned base. Echo's muscles tensed. As she ducked behind a crumbling concrete pillar, her breath came in shallow bursts as the sound of boots pounding against metal echoed through the corridors. K8's sensors flared back to life, its mechanical eyes scanning rapidly for threats. But even the robot seemed caught off guard by the sudden onslaught. Echo's mind raced to assess the situation. The hidden device she had disabled was clearly just one layer of a complex trap. Someone was orchestrating this with chilling precision, and they had known exactly when and where she would strike. The voice on the comms was no longer a distant threat. It was a command pulsing through the shadows, a hunter guiding the pack, closing in relentlessly. With a swift motion, Echo signaled to K8 to move toward the data vault. Their objective was no longer simply to retrieve information, but to survive the ambush. The robot's heavy steps were muffled by specialized soles designed for stealth, but even so, the pounding of approaching soldiers grew louder. Like a pack of wolves closing in on prey, Echo could feel their presence tightening around her. The corridors twisted and turned like a labyrinth, trapping them in a deadly game of cat and mouse. Echo's eyes flicked to the monitors on, the walls displaying surveillance footage. She saw her own shadow darting past the cameras, a silent invader in a world of eyes. But behind the scenes, the enemy was adapting quickly, adjusting their tactics and setting deadly traps in their wake. K8 suddenly stopped its advance as a burst of static crackled through its auditory sensors. Echo glanced at the robot and saw it locking onto a faint signal. The enemy was jamming their communications and scrambling frequencies. Echo cursed under her breath. The technology designed to give her an edge was now a double-edged sword working against her, with no time to waste. Echo tapped into her training, pushing her body to its limits. She vaulted over fallen debris and slipped through narrow vents, dragging K8 through spaces barely big enough for its frame. The bond between woman and machine was tested in these moments of sheer desperation. Their synchronized movements were a dance of survival in a hostile world where every second counted as they neared the data vault. Echo's heart pounded in her chest. She keyed in the override codes, her fingers flying over the keypad. K8 stood guard, its sensors piercing the darkness like a watchful sentinel. Suddenly, a flicker on the screen showed, the vault door beginning to unlock. But the victory was short-lived. The lights in the corridor flickered and went out, plunging everything into darkness. Echo froze for a heartbeat, the silence heavier now filled with the unknown. The footsteps outside grew louder and slower, as if the enemy was savoring their approach. In the void of darkness, K8 whispered a low-frequency alert. Echo knew the robot had detected movement just beyond the door. A shadow shifted in the blackness, a figure stepping closer, to the vault. Without hesitation, Echo whispered a command to K8, a sequence only the robot would understand. K8's mechanical arms unfolded, revealing weapons concealed beneath its chassis. The robot moved with deadly precision, targeting the unseen. Threat before a sudden explosion rocked the vault, sending shards of metal and sparks flying. Echo was thrown back, her body crashing against the cold floor, but her mind remained razor-sharp. K8 shielded her as another explosion rocked the facility. The base was coming apart around them and the enemy's grip was tightening. This was no longer a mission. It was a fight for survival, and the stakes were higher than ever before, amid the chaos. Echo managed to grab the encrypted data drive, the key to exposing the conspiracy buried deep within the government's darkest secrets. But as she turned to escape, she caught sight of a silhouette standing at the entrance to the vault, a figure cloaked in darkness, their face hidden, but their intent clear. The voice returned calm and cold. "The game is far from over." Echo whispered once more to K8, and with a surge of determination, they vanished into the maze of corridors, the shadows swallowing them whole. The city was waking up unaware of the storm. Brewing beneath its surface, Echo moved through the crowded streets, her senses sharpened to a razor edge. The data drive burned a hole in her pack, a small device carrying explosive secrets capable of toppling governments and rewriting history. K8 walked silently beside her, its towering frame a stark contrast to the chaos of everyday life around them. Echo knew she could not trust anyone, not even those who wore the badge of authority. The leaks had already begun, rumors spreading like wildfire, about secret experiments and shadow operations that crossed every line of legality. Her face remained hidden beneath a hood, her steps calculated and precise. She was a ghost, haunting the very world she had sworn to protect. The media frenzy exploded. The moment the scandal broke, the nation was captivated by the unfolding drama, a story too shocking to ignore. Military leaders were under fire, politicians scrambled to contain the damage, and the public demanded answers. Echo's name was whispered, in hushed tones, a symbol of courage and betrayal depending on who told the tale. The court case that followed became the epicenter of national attention. The judge presiding over the trial was a figure shrouded in mystery with a past as enigmatic as the case itself. No one knew why he accepted the assignment or what secrets he carried behind his solemn gaze. As the hearings began, Echo watched from the shadows, knowing the fate of everything hung in the balance. Evidence was presented that painted a picture of corruption, abuse, and moral decay within the highest ranks of power. The prosecution laid bare the details of the covert experiment, a program that weaponized technology and human lives for unchecked control. But just as the courtroom tension reached its peak, the judge delivered a ruling that stunned everyone. The judge declared the evidence inadmissible, citing procedural errors and violations of protocol. His decision sent shockwaves through the nation, disbelief and outrage rippling across every channel. The ruling was unexpected, seemingly protecting those implicated instead of holding them accountable. Echo felt a cold weight settle in her chest. The battle was far from over. Whispers began circulating about the judge's connections, his history intertwined with shadowy figures and untold agendas. The lines between justice and manipulation blurred as questions mounted about who truly held power behind the bench. Echo realized she was not just fighting a government conspiracy, but a judicial system rigged to preserve secrets at any cost. As protests erupted outside the courthouse, Echo found herself targeted by unseen enemies, her every move tracked and analyzed. The Silent Seal woman was now a fugitive, forced to rely on her wits and the unwavering loyalty of K8. The robot's presence was both a shield and a symbol of resistance in a world drowning in deceit. The stakes grew higher with each passing day. The nation teetered on the edge of chaos as trust in institutions crumbled and fear took root. Echo's mission had evolved, from retrieval to revelation to revolution. But deep inside, she harbored a secret hope that justice could still be reclaimed even if the odds seemed impossible. In the shadows of a forgotten safe house, Echo reviewed the data again, her fingers tracing. The lines of code and hidden messages, every detail mattered. Every anomaly was a piece of the puzzle she needed to expose the truth. The fight was not just for her own survival, but for the soul of a nation desperate for light in the darkness. And just as dawn broke, casting long shadows across the cityscape, a message arrived on her secure channel, one that promised to change everything. Echo's eyes narrowed as she read the cryptic words. The next move was hers, but the game had only just begun. The weight of the judge's ruling hung heavy over the nation like a storm cloud ready to burst. Echo knew that this was not the end, but rather the beginning of a far more dangerous game. Her sanctuary was breached just hours after the decision. The walls closing in on her silent refuge. K8 moved like a guardian shadow, intercepting threats before they could reach her. But even its formidable presence could not erase the growing peril. The world outside was a powder keg of unrest. Protests, ignited by the court decision, swelled into riots with angry crowds demanding justice and transparency. The media frenzy spiraled out of control, twisting facts and spinning narratives as hidden powers pulled strings behind the scenes. Echo's every move was tracked by unknown adversaries who sought to silence her and bury the explosive truth for good. But Echo was no ordinary warrior. She whispered one final command to K8, a sequence buried deep within the robot's core, activating a hidden protocol designed for moments when all seemed lost. The robot's eyes glowed with an intense light as it initiated a covert operation to expose the conspiracy in real time. K8 hacked into secure networks, broadcasting classified footage and evidence directly to the public without censorship or delay. The courtroom where the trial had unfolded became the epicenter of an unprecedented revelation. As live feeds streamed across every screen in the nation, the hidden truth unraveled before millions. K8 revealed secret recordings conversations between high-ranking officials discussing plans to manipulate the judiciary and control the flow of information. The public watched in stunned silence, the foundation of trust crumbling piece by piece. Echo emerged from the shadows, stepping into the harsh glare of the media spotlight. For the first time, her silence shattered as she told her story, her voice steady and unwavering, despite the weight of years spent in secrecy. She revealed the personal cost of fighting alone, the betrayals and sacrifices that shaped her path. The nation saw not just a warrior, but a symbol of resilience and hope. But with truth came danger. The forces aligned against Echo intensified their efforts, sending assassins and saboteurs to eliminate the threat she posed. K8 became both protector and weapon in a deadly dance that pushed them to the brink. Their bond stronger than ever, they moved through chaos with a singular purpose: to survive and ensure the truth could never be buried again. The political landscape shifted rapidly as powerful figures were exposed and arrested. The scandal forced reforms and ignited a national conversation about ethics, accountability, and the balance of power. But the price was steep. Echo and K8 remained marked, fugitives living on the edge of society, hunted but unbroken. Their story became legend, a testament to the cost of silence and the power of whispered commands in the face of overwhelming odds. As the dust settled, Echo stood on a rooftop overlooking a city forever changed beneath her. She whispered a final command to K8, a promise to continue the fight to protect the innocent and confront the darkness lurking in the shadows. The silent seal woman and her mechanical guardian vanished into the night, becoming a symbol of hope for those who dared to listen. And though their names might fade from headlines, their legacy echoed endlessly. A whisper carried on the winds of change, reminding the world that sometimes the loudest battles are fought in silence, and that even in the darkest nights, a single whisper can ignite a revolution. The city lights flickered below, casting long, distorted shadows that stretched like fingers across the empty streets. Echo stood motionless on the rooftop, the weight of everything she had endured pressing down like the heavy night air. Her eyes scanned the horizon, where the first faint hints of dawn threatened to break through the darkness. The battle was far from over, but a fragile victory had been carved out from the chaos. K8's sensors hummed softly beside her, its mechanical frame a stark reminder of the fusion between human will and cold, unyielding technology. Together, they had shattered illusions and torn through layers of deception, exposing secrets that many had hoped would remain buried. but the price had been high, too high for most to comprehend. Echo's voice broke the silence, whispering a command that activated a hidden data stream. The robot's eyes flared briefly, as encrypted files flooded networks around the world, evidence impossible to ignore. The truth was no longer confined to shadowy back rooms or buried beneath lies. It was alive and breathing in the hearts and minds of those who dared to listen. A sudden crackle from her comm device jolted her attention. A voice filtered through low, distorted but unmistakably familiar. It was the judge, the architect of the ruling, the man who had seemed untouchable. His words were calm but carried an edge of desperation and warning. "You think this is over, Echo? You are playing a game far bigger than you realize." Echo did not respond. Instead, she slipped the device into her pocket, knowing the war had only changed its shape. The judge was a piece on a vast board, a player hidden deep within the shadows. But she had learned something crucial, that even the most powerful could not silence the will of those who refused to be broken. Behind them, the city began to stir, the hum of life, returning to its relentless rhythm. People unaware of the silent war fought for their freedom and truth. Echo felt the weight of responsibility settle heavy on her shoulders, but also a fierce determination burning bright like a beacon. In the dark, K8 turned its head slowly towards her, its sensors capturing every nuance as if understanding the unspoken promise between them. They were no longer just soldier and machine, but symbols of resistance, a whisper that could not be silenced. With one final glance at the awakening city, Echo stepped off the rooftop, disappearing into the maze of alleys and forgotten streets. Her silhouette melted into the night, a ghost bound by purpose and a promise whispered into eternity. The revolution had begun not with a roar but with a whisper, and in the quiet the world would never be the same again.